For a man celebrating his 72nd birthday in 2024, Shigeru Miyamoto is relatively youthful in the pantheon of Japanese cultural icons. Legendary film director Akira Kurosawa planned to die on a film set, and may have done, had an accident in his mid-80s not damaged his spine and forced him into retirement. Hayao Miyazaki is still at work in his 80s, having surpassed his erstwhile colleague and Studio Ghibli co-founder Isao Takahata, who also kept on working until he was sadly taken by lung cancer at 82. The father of manga, Osamu Tezuka, passed away at a much younger age, but given his last recorded words were, "I'm begging you, let me work," one suspects that retirement wouldn't have laid a glove on him either. So, is Shigeru Miyamoto, who was in 2019 finally the first video game developer to be honoured as a person of cultural merit by the Japanese government, going to run and run and run at Nintendo? It's not like the concept of retiring hasn't been floated to him before. In 2011, rumours caught fire that he was going to retire, and Nintendo's Japanese stock dropped 2% on the back of this. This pushed the notoriously inscrutable company to suddenly become very loquacious, with a representative emailing CBS News to say, "Video game designer Shigeru Miyamoto's role at Nintendo is not changing. He will continue to be a driving force in Nintendo's development efforts." In discussing his priorities at Nintendo in a media interview, Mr. Miyamoto explained how he is encouraging the younger developers of the company to take more initiative and responsibility for developing software. He attempted to convey his priorities moving forward, inclusive of overseeing all video game development and ensuring the quality of all products. Mr. Miyamoto also discussed his desire to pursue fresh ideas and experiences of the kind that sparked his initial interest in video games. Of course, that was a long time ago, and Miyamoto-san has hardly been a stranger to us since. As well as showing off the early Breath of the Wild prototypes, promoting Mario Maker, and being around for the era of the Switch, launched in 2017, his presence was especially essential after the tragically early passing of Satoru Iwata. At that time, he and Genyo Takeda briefly were in charge of the company until Tatsumi Kimishima stepped into the void as the president of Nintendo, and it was clear that Miyamoto-san would be a supportive figure at this point, promoted to the new title of Creative Fellow with an expectation that he would provide advice and guidance. Nevertheless, Miyamoto-san has been stepping away from the game development sphere that was once his entire world. The man once told the Game Developer Conference in 1999, with reference to longtime Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi, "I like making games so much I do it for free, but don't tell Mr. Yamauchi." And yet, 2017's Super Mario Odyssey seems to have progressed largely without Miyamoto's input, and with producer Yoshiaki Koizumi stating, "The involvement of Mr. Miyamoto in this project is pretty similar to previous projects as well, in that we will go to him and say, this is the kind of game we want to make, and this is what we're hoping to achieve, and he will look at it and give his feedback and advice and ideas. In terms of actually how much of his advice we take on, we have a degree of flexibility and a degree of autonomy. As for Super Mario Odyssey, actually I'd say he left us to our own devices quite a lot. Despite the comments emphasizing continuity, Miyamoto-san was all over the marketing of Super Mario 3D World, and of course Super Mario Galaxy was a direct response to his challenge to the developers to fulfill his enigmatic vision of a spherical platformer. Unlike his colleague and Super Mario Bros. 1 assistant director Takashi Tezuka, who is still deeply involved in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Miyamoto has made clear that game development is in the rear-view mirror for him. A December 2023 Guardian interview shed some light on this change of direction. He said, "These days I don't think of myself as a game developer. I'm about finding unique opportunities for Nintendo. The way things work here is that, more than having a plan and following it, we come across certain things and from there we try to find our own new path. The movies, the amusement parks, I'm excited to see what kind of organic things result from those. I'm still very new to the movie industry and I'm still learning, but I'm trying to read a lot of scripts these days and learn about how they're developed, to see how we can create uniquely Nintendo films." This certainly ties in with where we most commonly see Shigeru Miyamoto these days, promoting the theme parks and films and generally being Nintendo's ambassador outside the gaming space, with Shinya Takahashi and Yoshiaki Koizumi, among others, reaching very senior positions in the company. Leadership in the gaming space is assured, and the Nintendo philosophy is very well embedded. Nintendo, though, has always embodied that Kyoto tradition of craftsmanship, with apprentices labouring long and hard under the masters, with a large base of experienced developers and the recent expansion of Nintendo EPD bringing a lot of new talent on board, and meaning that Miyamoto-san has every reason to feel confident stepping away from the day-to-day grind of game production. Interviewed by NPR, he was bullish about the chances of Nintendo remaining Nintendo even once he was no longer there. It's probably going to be the same, he said. There's, people on the executive team, creators within the company, and also people who create Mario. They all have this sense of what it means to be Nintendo. Still, as he noted to The Guardian, this does not necessarily mean retirement. He said, "More so than retiring, I'm thinking about the day I fall over," and apparently was smiling when he said this. In this day and age, you have to think about things in a 5-year time span. So I do think about who I can pass things to in case something does happen. I'm really thankful that there is so much energy around things that I have worked on. These are things that have already gone out into the world. They've been cultivated by others, other people have been raising them, helping them grow, so in that sense I don't feel too much ownership over them anymore. This makes sense because while Nintendo's hardware-software development team is well established and consistent, their broader brand strategy is still relatively new and needs someone who is both deeply connected to the world of Nintendo and someone with the profile and influence to carry the room. Nintendo has lots of executives who might be persuasive in their own way, but fundamentally, if the creator of Mario and Zelda walks into a room, it's time for everyone to sit up. This is the great quality that Miyamoto has, and it's this soft power that the company perhaps now needs to harness. With the retirement of Reggie Fils-Aimé and Genyo Takeda and the passing of Satoru Iwata, Nintendo is relatively short on its true superstar creators. It has many talented and revered people, but it is still, rightly in many ways, emphasizing the team and not the individuals, and the developers are hugely protected. Still, having an ambassador for the company with a bit of star power can come in useful, and this is the service that Miyamoto-san is clearly only too happy to provide. The Japanese have a concept of ikigai, a reason for being or a reason for living, and so even in retirement there is a pressure to keep active and engaged, as doing otherwise is bad for your ikigai. What then is Shigeru Miyamoto's ikigai? It was making games, but he no longer makes games. It was being a creative fellow of the company, but now he seems to be largely focused on broader uses of Nintendo IP. Even in terms of representing the company, The Guardian noted that it took a year to arrange the interview, and Miyamoto has often described himself as quite shy and not really a fan of the spotlight. If he did decide to quit, it's unlikely there will be a drastic dip in Nintendo stock again, as the company now is in such a stronger, more diversified position. And yet, what would Miyamoto's ikigai be if he's not protecting his creations? He's described himself as Mario's dad, as Donkey Kong's friend, and I think this personal connection probably means he will never definitively step back, even if his involvement in day-to-day activities becomes progressively lighter over time. I have to think that even if he isn't as active as today, when the red hat symbol flashes into the sky, Mario's dad will come in to put a good word across for the company. It will be a bit ghoulish somehow to put a specific forecast of the future of someone who has no apparent wish to retire, so let's just be crossing our fingers that Miyamoto's health remains good, and that, if he so wishes, he will become a guiding force for all things Nintendo for many years in the future. If you enjoyed this video, why not check out this fantastic video on screen, and in the meantime, I just have to say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon for another Nintendo Forecast.